Buckle up, guys. Today we are going to witness a courtroom drama that flips from calm to chaotic in seconds. What begins as routine questions quickly escalates into tension between the defendant, the attorneys, and the judge. Every word spoken here carries weight. Every pause adds suspense. This isn't just about legal arguments. It's about power, pressure, and how far someone will go to stand their ground. Stay locked in, because the next few moments reveal more than anyone expects.
Cartwright, if you could unmute yourself, please. There you go. This is 25RO02127. This is a speeding ticket that was issued on April 11th, about 10:30 in the evening on Woodward near Webster, and you were cited 60 and a 45. You can admit or deny responsibility, or you can admit responsibility with an explanation. How do you wish to proceed?
I deny responsibility. I don't believe I was speeding at all. And based off of the
Could you
original,
raise your right hands, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth?
yes,
Okay, the officer will testify first, please.
Okay, so I was going northbound, Woodward, while the defendant was going southbound. I had my front moving opposite radar on, so I was reading the southbound traffic. I got a reading of his vehicle at 60 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone. After he passed my vehicle still going southbound, I activated the rear radar, which also confirmed the same speed as when he originally passed me, at which time I followed him for a little bit and then eventually pulled him over.
And what can you tell me about the radar, please?
One, I'm certified to use the radar, and before the shift starts, we test the radar to make sure it's functioning properly, and then at the end of our shift, we also make sure it functions properly in between traffic stops.
Mr. Cartwright?
yes. When the officer pulled me over, there were two things that he said that weren't related to speeding. I was moving in and out of the lane. I wasn't staying straight in the lane. That was the first thing. And the second thing was that he believed that I was under the influence of alcohol, which was a major issue on my end, considering that he gave me the breathalyzer test and I blew a 0.00. That is concerning to me because this is my third time this has happened in Royal Oak, where I've been pulled over and given the breathalyzer test, and I come back clean, and it's something else. It's always, well, you were speeding. So I just have issues with that personally.
The first heated exchange sparks when the defendant pushes back against a seemingly harmless question. The room tightens as the judge leans in, demanding answers, while the attorney tries to steer the narrative in their favor. Here we see the raw clash between authority and resistance, where silence itself becomes a weapon. You can feel the tension rise as each statement challenges the other, and the balance of control teeters on the edge. This is where the courtroom begins to feel like a battlefield.
Well, if they see a car speeding and they see a car weaving around in the time of day, you think it's a surprise that they might think that somebody that was driving like that would be drinking?
Well, no, because if you don't believe that you're speeding, and first of all, I have a car that doesn't even allow you to just move into another lane and swerve around. The car that I have doesn't even allow that. So that's the first indicator. And two, the fact that it was said that I was smelling like liquor and then I blow a 0.00, it's a low level of credibility for me. Now, had he had pulled me over and said that I was speeding, and then that would have been the gist of the call, then I would have a little bit more credibility in that particular situation. But saying that I'm under the influence and then saying that I could be drunk and to find out I blow a 0.00, I just think there's some credibility issues to me.
When you say that there's credibility issues, do you mean with your credibility or with the officer's credibility?
With the officers, I mean, if it appears that I am under the influence of liquor, and you say you smell alcohol, that was also something that he said, was that you smell like alcohol, and I didn't drink, I didn't smell like alcohol, or And those two things raise a sense of concern. And the fact that I get pulled over, and this is my third time taking a breathalyzer test in Royal Oak, which I've never been guilty of any of those things, it concerns me about credibility. I'm not saying the officer is incredible. It just concerns me that there's some other issues, especially at 10 o'clock when there's a million young kids driving down the street, making noise and speeding. I'm the one that's being pulled over. I don't understand. It's just concerning to me. You know, I love Royal Oak and I like to be in Royal Oak, but I get pulled over so many times in Royal Oak, and it just concerns me about, you know, reasons of me being picked on, or however, whatever, you know, however you want to look at that. It just, I don't understand why it's okay to give someone a breathalyzer test.
Now the real suspense kicks in. The attorney presses harder, circling back with questions designed to trap the defendant, but the pushback grows louder. The judge tries to intervene, attempting to keep order, yet every interruption fuels the fire. What should be a simple back and forth has turned into a verbal chess match, where each move carries the weight of strategy. The air feels heavy, and it's clear something bigger is brewing beneath the surface. Everyone knows the stakes have just risen.
And by the way, if I was drunk, he forced me to go all the way to the right lane in the middle of traffic where a car almost ran into me. Now, mind you, if I was intoxicated, that would be a terrible decision. So we went from the first left lane speed lane, or if you want to call it the third left lane, and he tells me to start my car again and merge over to the right while there's traffic, and one car actually almost hit me. He had to put the lights on. I mean, it's just, I don't know, but maybe that's just the way they do things. It just concerns to me, and I wanted to speak freely. That's why I didn't get my lawyer involved, because I am concerned about, you know, this experience and my continuous experience in Royal Oak.
The only thing you haven't spoken about is your speed.
Well, I said that I don't believe, I did from the beginning. I said that I don't believe I was speeding, because that's not the first thing that he said. The first thing he said was I was swerving in the lane, or I was swerving around between lanes. And then the next thing was, you smell like alcohol. So, I mean, speeding wasn't even a conversation. I don't even recall that being a conversation. I'm not saying it wasn't. I don't recall that.
Okay. The officer is certified to operate radar. He checked the unit before and after his shift. It worked at the beginning, it worked at the end. He measured your speed with his front moving radar at 60 miles an hour in a 45 zone. He then measured your speed with the rear moving radar. It stayed at 60 in the 45, and he wrote you for that. And the conversation about weaving isn't on the ticket. The fact that you took the preliminary breath test and showed that there was no alcohol is really a good thing. So that saved you some issues. And the bottom line here, you didn't think you were speeding, but he measured your speed twice with radar, and it didn't change. Two different modes on the radar. So you have paid a bond on, I do believe you're responsible for the reasons that I just said. And you've paid the bond on this matter, so the bond will be applied. That's
fine. Just stop pulling over black people, officer.
At this stage, we see emotions spilling over. Voices raise, arguments overlap, and the courtroom dynamic shifts from formal procedure to raw confrontation. The defendant refuses to fold, standing firm against pressure, while the attorney grows visibly frustrated. The judge attempts to pull back control, but the chaos shows cracks in the system itself. This isn't just legal drama. It's human drama, where pride, fear, and determination collide in real time. This part leaves the audience hanging on every second.
And saying they're drunk, because I honestly don't understand this at all. Why you would give somebody a breathalyzer test when they haven't been drinking and they
drive
pour
60 miles an hour on Woodward Avenue and expect
I don't believe I was, and no, you or anyone else can tell me differently. I don't believe it.
Well,
but
then there's no point in talking.
As we move deeper, the tension hits its peak. The judge lays down a sharp warning. The attorney makes one last push, and the defendant's reaction set the tone for everything that follows. Every gesture, every pause is magnified, telling us more than the words themselves. This is the kind of moment where the outcome feels uncertain, where one wrong word could flip the entire case upside down. The suspense is gripping, and it feels like the breaking point is seconds away.
All right. The court is calling 25C120 and 25C121. 25C120 is Agneta Nashtikal. How do you pronounce your last name, ma'am?
Well, it's Nachtigall. I mean, he can say it better than I can, of course.
Nachtigall. So Agneta Nachtigall versus Karen Nachtigall. And the other case, 25C121, is Agneta Nachtigall versus Carl Nachtigall. And these are your son and daughter?
Yes.
I really get concerned about these types of protection orders. All right, so I'm going to give you some general information, Ms. Nachtigall. I am going to take testimony from you, and it is your burden to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that a risk or threat of physical harm or threat of psychological or emotional harm exists to you from your son and daughter. If I find that that risk or threat of physical harm or threat of psychological or emotional harm does exist, I would grant you a temporary protection order and set a permanent protection order hearing. Of course, today I would only be hearing from one side in the case. If it is set for a permanent protection order hearing, then Carl Nachtigall and Karen Nachtigall would both be served with the papers that you have filed and appear, and it would be a court trial where, again, it is your burden to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the acts which you allege occurred and that they will continue to occur in the future. That is your burden to prove. You have to be prepared for a court trial on that day where you would present any testimony or evidence that you have and any exhibits that you might have. Exhibits are things like documents or photographs or other things. And then you would present your testimony and evidence, and Ms. Karen Nachtigall and Mr. Carl Nachtigall would have an opportunity to ask you questions, or if they have an attorney, the attorney could ask you questions. And then once you've concluded your side of the story, then they can present their side of the story. And you, or if you have an attorney, would have the opportunity to cross-examine them and their witnesses. And then I will make a decision as to whether you have met your burden to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the acts that you allege in your verified complaint occurred, and they will continue to occur in the future. Do you understand the process? Do you have any questions about the process? You have questions, or you understand? I'm sorry, I asked you two questions.
I
Okay.
understand.
All right. If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. State your name for the record.
Agneta Nachtigall.
Could you move that microphone closer to you, ma'am?
Agneta Nachtigall.
Okay, and let's start with your protection order against Karen Nachtigall. Why do you believe that she is a risk, or that she poses a risk or threat of physical harm or threat of psychological or emotional harm to you?
She has been doing it ever since she moved to Colorado. She's been mean and nasty.
And finally, The courtroom reaches its climax. The arguments draw to a close, but not without leaving their mark. The judge's ruling cuts through the noise, delivering a decision that reflects the chaos leading up to it. The defendant stands divided between defiance and resignation, while the attorney calculates what comes next. The silence that follows is louder than the shouting before. This ending doesn't just conclude the case. It cements the unforgettable tension we've just witnessed from start to finish.
So
As soon as she put her foot in our house, she started being mean to me. And
But, protection orders aren't about people being mean or nice. What is she doing specifically that causes you to feel she poses a risk or threat of physical harm or psychological or emotional harm? What is she doing specifically?
but I guess it's kind of hard to say. I kept on running away from her because she's mean, and locked myself in my bedroom. And I started to get high blood pressure in the beginning. And I didn't want to say anything to my husband and to say anything. So I kept it all inside for years. And then finally, it became so bad. I was telling him all the things he was doing to me. And then my heart started feeling weird. And then I ended up having a stroke. And then my doctor, of course, he wanted to know if I knew where I got a stroke. I said, yeah, I'm afraid of my daughter. Yeah, she's, the way she acts and behaves, I just...
So what is she doing specifically that causes you concern?
There's so much. She's
Well,
very,
tell me
very
what-
sneaky.
1 second. What has she done in August that you feel?
Okay. When I wrote her that note, it's been about 1.5 years now that stay far away from me. So she has stayed far away from me. She has not come around and I have not talked to her. But she's using my son as a supply and my granddaughters as a supply to be mean and nasty. And just recently, my husband, when he goes and see his daughter and son, he comes home and he's not like the same person. He's like nervous. And I'm looking at him, I thought, what's going on here? And that one day, after acting weird for 3 days to 4 days, just staring at me and acting crazy. I mean, not crazy, but acting strange. And then all of a sudden he goes crying like a baby and he says, I can't do it.